Okay, we were talking about how reliable is the Bible. If the Bible isn't reliable, then how reliable would our testimony be? It's all about evidence. Now, Josh McDowell wrote a book on this. I keep it home in my closet. The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict, 1999. It's available online or in bookstores and libraries when they open. Textual transmission and manuscript evidence of this Old Testament is key. Is it valid, or has it been made up by imaginary authors? Part of discovering the historical reliability of the Old Testament has to do with examining the textual transmission, the path from the original writings to today's printed copies. As with other literature of antiquity, we do not have the original documents. Although from the New Testament Greek, since it's only since the 1st century, we very well might have some because they're that old. But the accuracy of the Hebrew copyists is astonishing when comparing the scriptures to other literature of antiquity. Gleason Archer states, "It should be clearly understood that in this respect to transmission, the Old Testament differs from all other pre-Christian works of literature of which we have any knowledge. To be sure, we do not possess so many different manuscripts of pagan productions coming from such widely separated eras as we do in the case of the Old Testament. But where we do, for example, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the variations are of far more extensive and serious nature. Quite startling differences appear, for example, between chapter 15 contained in the Papyrus of Eni, written in the 18th dynasty or later. Whole clauses are inserted or left out, and the sense in corresponding columns of texts is in some cases altogether different. Apart from divine superintendence of the transmission of the Hebrew text, there is no particular reason why the same phenomena of divergence and change would not appear between Hebrew manuscripts produced centuries apart. For example, even though the two copies of Isaiah discovered in Qumran Cave No. 1 near the Dead Sea in 1947 were 1,000 years earlier than the oldest dated manuscripts previously known, AD 980, they proved to be word for word identical with our standard Hebrew Bible in more than 95% of the text. The 5% of variation consisted chiefly of obvious slips of the pen and variations in spelling. They do not affect the passage of Revelation in the slightest. Robert Dick Wilson's brilliant observations trace the veracity and trustworthiness of scriptures back to the surrounding cultures of Old Testament Israel. The Hebrew scriptures contain the names of 26 or more foreign kings, whose names have been found on documents contemporary with the kings. The names of most of these kings are found to be spelled on their own monuments or in documents from the time in which they reigned in the same manner that they are spelled in the documents of the Old Testament. The changes in spelling of others are in accordance with the laws of phonetic change, as those laws were in operation at the time when the Hebrew documents claim to have been written. In the case of 2 or 3 names, only are their letters or spellings that cannot as yet be explained with certainty. But even in these few cases, it cannot be shown that the spelling in the Hebrew text is wrong. Contrariwise, the names of many of the kings of Judah and Israel are found on the Assyrian contemporary documents with the same spelling as that which we find in the present Hebrew text. In 144 cases of transliteration from Egyptian, Assyrian, Babylonian, and Moabite into Hebrew, and in 40 cases of the opposite, or 184 in all, the evidence shows that for 2,300 to 3,900 years, the text of the proper names in the Hebrew Bible has been transmitted with the most minute accuracy. That the original scribes should have written them with such close conformity to correct philological principles is a wonderful proof of their thorough care and scholarship. Further, that the Hebrew text should have been transmitted by copyists through so many centuries is a phenomenon unequaled in the history of literature. Professor Wilson continues, "For neither the assailants nor the defenders of the biblical text should assume for one moment that either this accurate rendition or this correct transmission of proper names is an easy or usual thing. And as some of my readers may not have experience in investigating such matters, attention may be called to the names of kings of Egypt as given in Manetho and on the Egyptian monuments. Manetho was a high priest of the idol temples in Egypt in the time of Ptolemy Philadelphus and about 280 BC. He wrote a book on the dynasties of Egyptian kings, of which fragments have been preserved in the works of Josephus, Eusebius, and others. Of the kings of the 31 dynasties, he gave 40 names from 22 dynasties. Of these, 49 appear on the monuments in a form in which every consonant of Manetho's spelling may possibly be recognized, and 28 more may be recognized in part. The other 63 are unrecognizable in any single syllable. If it be true that Manetho himself copied these texts from the original records, and the fact that he is substantially correct in 49 cases corroborates the supposition that he did. The hundreds of variations and corruptions in the 50 or more unrecognizable names must be due either to his fault in copying or to the mistakes of the transmitters of his text. Wilson goes on to add, there are about 40 of these kings living from 2000 BC to 400 BC. Each appears in chronological order. With reference to the kings of the same country and with respect to the kings of other countries, no stronger evidence for the substantial accuracy of the Old Testament records could possibly be imagined than this collection of kings. Mathematically is one chance in, I don't know how many zeros here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7,000 thousands of dynasties that this accuracy is mere circumstance. It's innumerable. Because of the evidence, miraculous. Because of the evidence, Wilson concludes, the proof that the copies of the original documents in the Hebrew Bible have been handed down with substantial correctness for more than 2,000 years cannot be denied. That the copies in existence 2,000 years ago had been in like manner handed down from the originals is not merely possible, but as we have shown is rendered probable by the analogies of Babylonian documents now existing, of which we have both originals and copies thousands of years apart, and of scores of papyri, which show, when compared with other modern editions of the classics, that only minor changes of the text have taken place in more than 2,000 years, and especially by the scientific and demonstrable accuracy with while this proper spelling of the names of kings and of the numerous foreign terms embedded in the Hebrew text has been transmitted to us. F.F. Bruce states that the consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible, which the Masoretes edited in the 1000 BC, AD, Masoretes edited, have been handed down to their time with conspicuous fidelity over a period of nearly 1,000 years. William Green concludes that it may safely be said that no other work of antiquity has been so accurately transmitted. Concerning the accuracy of the transmission of the Hebrew text, Atkinson, who was under-librarian of the library at Cambridge University, says, it is little short of miraculous. For hundreds of years, Jewish rabbis have guarded the transmission of the Hebrew text with minute precautions. This chapter highlights what has resulted. Quantity of manuscripts. Now, let's go into that. Even though the Old Testament does not boast of the same quantity of manuscripts as the New Testament, the number of manuscripts have available today is quite remarkable. Several reasons have been suggested for the scarcity of early manuscripts in the Hebrew. The first and most obvious reason is a combination of antiquity and destructibility. 2,000 to 3,000 years is a long time to expect ancient documents to last. Nonetheless, several lines of evidence support the conclusion that their quality is very good. First, it is important to establish the quantity of manuscripts available. There are several important collections of Hebrew manuscripts today. The first collection of Hebrew manuscripts, made by Benjamin Kennicott and published by Oxford, listed 615 manuscripts of the Old Testament. Later, Giovanni de Rossi published a list of 731 manuscripts. The most important manuscript discoveries in modern times are those of the Cairo Genisa and the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Cairo synagogue attic a Geniza, or storehouse for old manuscripts, was discovered. 200,000 manuscripts and fragments, 200,000, some 10,000 of which are biblical, were found. Near the end of the 19th century, many fragments from the 6th to 8th centuries were found in an old synagogue in Cairo, Egypt, which had been St. Michael's Church until 882. They were found there in a Geniza, a storage room where they were worn or faulty manuscripts and were hidden until they could be disposed of properly. This Geniza had apparently been walled off and forgotten until its recent discovery. In this small room, as many as 200,000 manuscripts were preserved, including biblical texts in Hebrew and Aramaic. The Bible fragments date from the 5th century A.D. Of the manuscripts found in the Cairo Geniza, about one-half are now housed at Cambridge University. The rest are scattered throughout the world. Cairo Geniza's authority, Paul Cayley, has identified more than 120 rare manuscripts prepared by the Babylonian group of Masoretic scribes. The largest collection of Hebrew Old Testament manuscripts in the world is the Second Firkowitz collection in Leningrad. It contains 1,582 items of the Bible and Masorah on parchment, 725 on paper, plus 1,200 additional Hebrew manuscripts fragments on the Antonin collection. Cayley contends also that these Antonin collection manuscripts and fragments are all from the Cairo Geniza. In the Firkowitz collection are found 14 Hebrew Old Testament manuscripts from between the years AD 929 and AD 1121 that originated in the Cairo Geniza. Cairo Geniza manuscripts are scattered all over the world. Some of the better ones in the United States are in the NLO Memorial Collection at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York. The British Museum catalog lists 161 Hebrew Old Testament manuscripts as well. And at Oxford University, the Bodleian Library catalog lists 146 Old Testament manuscripts, each containing a large number of fragments. Goshen Gottstein estimates that in the United States alone there are tens of thousands of Semitic manuscript fragments, about 5% of which are biblical, more than 500 manuscripts. The most significant Hebrew Old Testament manuscripts, date from between the 3rd century BC and the 14th century AD. Of these, the most remarkable manuscripts are those of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which date from the 3rd century BC to the 1st century AD. They include one complete Old Testament book, Isaiah, and thousands of fragments, which together represent every Old Testament book except Esther. The Dead Sea Scrolls, those manuscripts are highly significant because they confirm the accuracy of other manuscripts dated much later. For example, Cairo Codex, AD 895, is the earliest Masoretic manuscript prior to the Dead Sea Scroll discoveries. It is now located in the British Museum. Also, Codex Cairnesis. It was produced by the Masoretic Moses ben Asher family and contains many, both the latter and the former prophets. The rest of the Old Testament is missing from it. Codex of the Prophets of Leningrad in AD 916 contains Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12 minor prophets. The earliest complete MS of the Old Testament is the Codex Babylonicus, Petropolitanus, in AD 1008, located in Leningrad. It was prepared from a corrected text of Rabbi Aaron ben Moses ben Asher before AD 1000, so that even then they were correcting one another to keep them updated. Aleppo Codex in 900 AD is an exceptionally valuable manuscript that once was thought lost, but in 1958 was rediscovered. It did not, however, escape damage. It was partially destroyed in the 1947 riots in Israel. Aleppo Codex was the oldest complete Masoretic manuscript of the entire Old Testament. Lots of evidence here. British Museum Codex, AD 950, contains part of Genesis through Deuteronomy. In the Rochlin Codex of the Prophets, this text was prepared by the Masoret ben Naphtali. This brings up the question of the faithfulness of the transmission of the Bible text. There are numerous types of manuscript error which the textual critic may discover in the early manuscripts of the Old Testament. More on this next time.